Welcome, everybody, and happy Thursday. I'm Mike Dabity. I'm the co-CEO of Heart+Mind Strategies, where we come to work every day for our clients and for one another, put the human at the center of insights and strategy. And today, we want to put the human in money, which at times can be seen as maybe sometimes transactional and a bit impersonal. There is a Chinese proverb, I'm told, that goes something like this: wealth is the shadow of money, highlighting that true wealth isn't just possession, but it's wise planning and utilization. We want to shine a light on the human factor when it comes to money and modern financial planning today. Discussing and dealing with financial matters, personal or even sometimes in business, for many can evoke discomfort. Fewer than half of Americans have a comprehensive financial plan, a roadmap, if you will, to greater confidence and security. But they need it. 75% of US GDP is still spurred on by consumer spending. And yeah, growing consumer debt is also a reality today as well. And it's clear that emotions and values greatly influence our financial choices, or the choices that we don't make. Those that we can consciously think about, these choices we consciously think about and act on or don't, and sometimes those that are more subconscious. There's also demographic trends that are apparent that also we will get into today, such as a growing Gen Z, young generation, as being the first majority multicultural generation in the country, or what has been published regarding a very large generational wealth transfer that's about to happen. And all of those types of things that is going to reshape the financial landscape. US economic challenges and uncertainty are persisting. It's impacting consumers, it's impacting business, it's impacting many industry organizations and industries and professions. With inflation and unemployment and even technology, especially AI and DIY tools, may be helping to bridge some of these gaps and some of this uncertainty. I find it fascinating to observe human behavior of risk and reward. Some embrace DIY, AI financial tools because it gives them a sense of control. Others only want to work with humans, though, as financial advisors because they want that human connection and that human interaction. And then for some, there's a hybrid, depending upon the situation that they're in. And in the middle of these dynamics is a growing and vital profession of financial planning, of certified financial planners who are certified to meet the needs of Americans and to help them find confidence today and a more secure tomorrow. On our panel today and joining with us is Kevin Keller with the CFP board, Kamila Elliott, a practicing CFP professional, and Martin Booker from AARP. All of them will be diving deeper into some of these dynamics that I mentioned, examining planning and retirement, workforce matters, trust, competency, and ethics when it comes to finance and financial planning. In these roundtables, as we've said before, for those of you who have joined us in the past, it's important for us to prioritize taking a pause, having unbiased, no agenda, knowledge discussion and knowledge transfer, learning from experts and from one another. Today, a dialogue and learning from industry leaders, spotlighting the human element in financial decisions. So I just want to welcome you all. I want to say thank you for joining, and let's get right into the discussion today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate that setup. We're ready to have some fun. I can tell just from brief conversations with Kevin, Kamila, and Martin that we are going to have some fun. We've got some not only really smart people doing a lot of good things, but great personalities who really can communicate and teach us some things as we walk through this. Those of you who are new with us today, my name is Maury Giles, Chief Growth Officer at Heart+Mind Strategies, and I get the fun job of talking to y'all as we walk through this. Now, each of you that are here joining us as well, I want to make sure that you know that through the chat function, please feel free to put in thoughts, comments, questions. We will get to some Q&A with the broad audience as well. We also do these a little bit different, where we're not in a webinar setting where you actually can turn on your camera and see others that are here, and even raise your digital virtual hand for a question that you might have that we can get to a little bit later. Now, diving into this topic right off of the bat, Kevin, I'm going to come to you, but I want to start by showing something that I know we're familiar with, and others may or may not have seen this. I'm going to share my screen now, and I want everyone to watch this spot.
Double check that. That's pretty good. Yee. Not crying, are you? Let's tighten that and... Ooh.
Wait, what was that?
What? That? No, don't worry about that. Here we go.
Asking the right question can greatly impact your future,
Are you qualified to do this?
What?
especially when it comes to your finances.
Do you have a question?
Are you a certified financial planner?
Yes, I'm a CFP professional.
CFP professionals are committed to acting in your best interest. That's why it's gotta be a CFP. Find your CFP professional at letsmakeaplan.org.
So, Kevin, hold on a second. It's taking me to Larry David. That was a nice transition. So, Kevin, on that spot, that bungee jump, that emotion that you can feel with that guy about to jump off the edge. First off, I can't ever get myself to do bungee jumping, but if I did in that very moment, you can feel something that's so intense. Why was this an important thing that the CFP board decided we need to put out, you needed to put out there in the marketplace when it comes to financial planning?
Yeah, well, Maury, thank you so much, and happy to be with you today. You know, when we research clients who have worked with a certified financial planner or those that have other financial advisors versus those that do it yourself, what we find is that the clients of the CFP folks in the US feel more confidence about their financial position. And so the real, I think the most important thing about this ad is that it helps convey, you know, what was clearly a scary effort standing there on that bridge. And then I think a lot of people make that relationship between their finances and the calmness that a person feels and the comfort and the confidence that they get from meeting with a CFP professional. So it really goes right to the heart of the value that a certified financial planner brings to the relationship with his or her clients.
And what do you see from your vantage point? For those that don't know, the CFP board, you're a licensing and certification board that sets the standard for something that someone can rely upon, right? When they're hiring someone that's a financial planner. When your vantage point from the industry and financial services at large, today we're talking about this idea of transforming trust in modern financial planning. In what ways and why is it so important that the industry do more to be able to transform trust in such a human way?
Yeah, the human element is so important. I might take a little exception with your question, if I could, Maury, in that,
Sure,
you know, we think of financial planning as a profession, not an industry, but that's a minor point, but one that's really important, as almost 100,000 people have earned their certified financial planner designation. But right to the crux of your question about why the human element is so important. You know, human engagement and understanding are just critical to serving a client's best interest. You know, for CFP certification, you have to meet high competency standards, education and exam and experience. But also a CFP professional commits to acting as a fiduciary to their client, which means that they act in their client's best interest. You know, we hear how much time in the relationship CFP professionals spend with their clients, just navigating this emotional and the behavioral side of money. My personal financial planner for my spouse and I told me one time, he said, you know, Kevin, once I figured out that about 0% of decisions are made based on objective facts, and almost everything is tied to emotion. He said, I got a lot better at being a financial planner. All of this is to say that in addition to the technical components of CFP certification, we've added psychology as a domain in the educational content. It's a principled knowledge topic. So in addition to insurance, taxes, retirement, investments, and other topics, CFP professionals since 2021 have been tested on these psychology issues as well, really getting at that human touch. It's a direct acknowledgement and reflection of the very topic of our conversation today.
On that certification, just following up on that, how is that evolving today as an important piece of training that financial planners need to have? And how have you evolved that certification to make sure that that is a known thing that can help the planner in that profession, but benefit the human in that process?
You know, we at CFP Board, Maury, have always been committed to fostering what I would call client-centered planning, one that serves the client's best interest. I've been here more than 16 years. There were just over 50,000 CFP professionals when I came, as we'll have over 100,000 by next year. And this means that every year more planners are developing skills and taking continuing education courses in this area of psychology of financial planning, or the, to use your words, the human side of financial planning. You know, there are a lot of credentials out there. Anybody who's ever met with a financial advisor probably seen lots of letters after their name. They're not all created equal, though. Some of them only require a few hours of training and a kind of an open book test. As we go forward and navigate technological advances, I think it's going to be even more important in the future that advisors are trained and stay current in these topics around the human side of financial planning.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm going to come back to you as you kind of look at that. I want to transition to Kamila Elliott. Kamila, you heard Kevin talking about the practitioners in this field, and I know you yourself are a CFP. You are the co-founder and CEO of Collective Wealth Partners. Talk to us when you think about it from the perspective of working with people and this idea of trying to transform trust. What strategies have you adopted to ensure that your clients always feel they're interacting with humans and not just an investment firm or with planners?
Definitely. And I think that it's a really important question. And I think when you mentioned earlier, one of the bigger barriers to people reaching their financial goals is not the investment platform. It's not the investments they choose. It's usually the behaviors that they exhibit that impede their ability. So for us, the first meeting we have with our clients, once they come on board, we don't talk about $1, money, how much you have saved, or any of that. We talk about your goals. We have an envisioning session with every client about what are you trying to accomplish, right? You want to retire? Talk about retirement with us. What kind of retirement do you want to have? We talk about your family and your family structure. We talk about your values. We talk about what brings you joy, and we talk about what you fear the most. And I think it's important because every plan we do is individualized, right? There is no cookie cutter plan. You can have a cookie cutter investment model, but you can't have a cookie cutter plan for anyone. And we want to uncover in that first meeting, what do we think are the emotional barriers that you have to reaching your goals, right? What are the things that you fear the most? What are the things that you value the most? And to Kevin's point earlier, one of the things about being a financial planner and helping people is you can't think about you and your assumptions and your attitudes towards money and impart that on someone else. Everyone had a different upbringing. Some people grew up very wealthy, some grew up not so wealthy. Some people have a scarcity mindset. Some people have an abundance mindset. Some people find joy in other places that you don't find joy in. And if I make an assumption that the values that I have for myself and my goals are the same for you, I really can create that roadmap for you to reach your goals. So having that conversation is really important. And particularly, I'll say, even for spouses or couples, right? We have to make sure that we individualize the couple, right? So it's not both of you together, like, no, you're putting two people who grew up in two different households in two geographic areas, probably also this time have different demographics. We need to understand both of them individually before they became a union or became partners, to understand how do we make sure that they're on the same path. I can't tell you how many married couples I have. They've been married for like 5-6 years. They've never had a conversation about money the way we had in our first goal setting meeting, because I stopped it and I broke it down, right? So that's one thing that you need to think about is, you know, how do you individualize the planning process, and how do you remove the jargon and the money talk in the beginning to truly understand someone's individual goals and potential barriers to their success.
Now, you've been at this for a while.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How is it changing, or how has it changed in recent years? We've had so many disruptive things in our society, right, that have shaped the way we look at, the way we act, the decisions we make, how we engage. We're going to talk about tech and how that's also evolved. But how has it changed for you and those that are in your firm in the way you interact with people? Because so much of what you're talking about feels so resonant as human truths that have always been there, but yet it feels like there's maybe a need to expand, or this has been changing and evolving. Can you talk about, from your perspective, how you see this changing?
Sure. The one thing I think about is the complexity has increased significantly, right? So think about someone who came to you or came to a financial advisor 30 years ago. They had a pension. Their retirement was planned out. They look at their healthcare benefits. They probably only had an HMO. Right? There was no HSA, there was no FSA, right? Over the past, 20, 30 years, the complexity of financial planning has increased significantly. And we're doing a lot more with clients that we didn't do 20, 30 years ago. If you go back, it was primarily just investment allocation and tax planning, estate planning. Think about the employee benefit packet you get every year in September, October, and November. There's FSA, HSA, dependent care credit. There's a high deductible plan. There's a PPO. There's an we didn't have that, right? And so we find ourselves helping clients navigate this complexity, because maybe not for you, but when I went to college, no one told me about what an HMO was and a PPO was, right? No one ever explained that to you. And so I have PhDs from Johns Hopkins, I don't understand my healthcare plan, Kamila, can you help me understand and farm it out, right? Yeah. So I think, one thing we forget is that financial planning has evolved in terms of the scope, right? In terms of healthcare, taxes have gotten a lot more complex than they were historically, even for someone with a W-2, right? And we find ourselves being a more integral part of our clients' financial lives, and not just, looking at your pace to retirement, but looking at your pace towards putting your kids through college, tax planning, how estate planning laws keep changing, benefits keep changing, different compensation of RSUs and things like that. We're there to be a partner with them step by step, which wasn't the case, many, many, many years ago.
Now, I want to get to Martin, but right before I do that, Kevin, I want to ask you this from a vantage point of the profession, and being in a place where you're creating the certification and training for that particular CFP status. How do you see these changes with this complexity, and what have you been doing to evolve the kind of training and certification that comes up to help make sure that it's still very human as people are having to navigate that complexity?
Yeah, as I said, Maury, we added the psychology of financial planning as a principal knowledge topics and domain for the testing outline. And so, it's a recognition of just how important this is. We define psychology of financial planning as identifying and responding to the attitudes, the behaviors, and the various situations that Kamila was talking about that really impact decision-making and the client-planner relationship. We used to, part of that evolution, about 10 years ago, we published a book called Client Psychology. And that really looked at the biases, behaviors, and attitudes of the client. But Kamila, you referenced this. The planner brings his or her own biases, behaviors, and attitudes, and just being aware and sensitive to how they impact the client-planner relationship are so important. So that's one of the evolutions that we've made.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Martin, I want to bring you in. I can see you there ready to go because I know that I've been privileged to work with AARP and a lot of things for over 25 years. And I know that you've been working in the last several years in the area of financial resilience and the programs that you put forward. You bring a different and interesting voice to this because you're in a position of education and training for the consumer and advocating. And I know AARP focuses on the 50+ audience. We know there's investors more than just that, but in the consumer voice that you bring to the table, talk to me about the unique concerns and what AARP hears from its members as it relates to some of these trends that Kamila and Kevin have been talking about.
Yeah, thanks for that, Maury. Great question. So, when it comes to AARP and our audience, we're, for a lot of what we bring to the table, we're focusing on 50+, but we end up with a fairly heavy concentration at I'd say around 60, 65+, right? We have a lot of individuals that are coming to us that want to talk, hear and learn more about Social Security, right? They want to talk about some of the retirement planning and things that you can do in retirement to even still manage your finances and make sure that when things have transitioned and you're now managing your money in a different way, right? It's coming in a different way. You have to manage it in a different way and kind of keep those pots filled in a sense, right? They want to have those conversations. So it's like, what do we do in those moments? And the great thing is that, throughout a lot of our programming, we've geared a lot of our direct to consumer programming to more ways where we can actually hear from the audience, right? That's one of the things that we've learned. It's not as much of a one-way conversation. People want to talk to us. So they want to find ways to have a dialogue, ask their questions live, hear the answers from experts in the moment, right? And in those moments, we get to hear the concern. We get to hear some of the confusion around some of these topics, some of these, the terms that are being used, or the complexities of Social Security, which we know is a very complex system. And then we get to hear the excitement from people when things are working and when it's going well. So that's the good thing about that two-way conversation. So we're hosting events like what we call teletown halls, where you can actually have a dialogue. And Kevin, I'm sure knows this well, but the CFP board is a part of our process. So, and I'll talk about that a little later, but they're involved in helping us out to make sure that we can directly connect with clients and get them some of the expert help that they need. But I'd even say within the last 3 to 4 years, we even started to shift gears in some of the topics that we covered, right? A lot of times you think, oh, I'm talking to someone 65+, in some cases 60, 65+, we're going to talk about retirement planning and Social Security. But we've even seen in some of our savings and planning strategies that conversations around debt and credit and savings are still just as important. They want to hear about that too, right? And they want to bring down the credit card debt, like reduce some debt, or figure out what are some good short and long-term saving strategies. So those conversations become just as important because those are the things that become extremely daunting. So when we talk about the psychology of money and our mindset or emotions around money, it's if I lower some of that credit card debt, then that takes a little bit of weight off my shoulders. I'm not feeling as overwhelmed. So now as I get closer to retirement, the outlook is a little different, or the goal changes, because it's not, I have to pay off 7 credit cards and figure that part out before I'm no longer, getting paid bi-weekly or seeing a check as often as I used to. So I say from our consumers, I mean, it's great to be able to have those conversations, get an understanding of what they need, what they're asking, and we're consistently doing, some type of feedback survey, or we're capturing the questions that were being asked during a lot of our learnings, so that we can make sure that we truly understand, what are the themes, what's coming up, what are people asking about the most, or what are their biggest concerns, so that we can shape our content in a way that's helpful for that audience.
And Martin, are you hearing, and in what ways are you hearing, either by direct response from the feedback you get, or just by observing the way people and those that you serve and advocate for are looking, that there's a hunger or a need for more human connection in the people that are helping them with this, those financial planners that are having that conversation with them, doing the kinds of things that Kamila was talking about? Is that something that you are seeing a need for? Is it happening enough, or is there a desire for it to happen more? Or is it just that there's much better results when that's the way it is approached?
Yeah, I think a lot of the latter in what you just mentioned, we even see better results when we're providing services with more of a human touch. So it's finding those ways to increase, right? It's like, even hosting programming, webinars. Let's take a webinar, for example. We want to find more and more ways to make sure that, while you're on the webinar or while you're on a call, you can talk to someone individually, because talk to an expert individually, because they want those questions answered. We've started to increase programming that just provides more and more of a human touch, because that's what what people are asking for, and those programs are yielding are yielding better results for us, right? So where people are a lot more pleased when they actually have time to talk to an expert, because we could take any financial topic, and once we start to explain it, question after question's coming in, right? For someone who may not be as expert in the topic, right? So they want to have that conversation, and we found that we're getting much higher scores, that our feedback is coming back in much more positive ways the more that we add that human connection there. And the last thing I'll mention is that we even started to go from just the technical scripts and having like very technical financial conversations to those more human conversations, right? Let's for example, let's use something as simple as the Social Security message of it pays to wait, right? We know that the longer you wait to take the money, to withdraw your Social Security to benefit, the more money that you'll get over time. So before, we were very strong on the it pays to wait. It's a great message to say, right? But then you realize that can come off really tone deaf, right? If someone's like, well, hey, I have to take it at 62. If you're just saying it pays to wait, take it at 70, they're like, well, hey, what about my health? What about my life expectancy? What about my bank account, my wallet, right? My nest egg. And so our message went from just it pays to wait to it pays to wait, but think about these things and do what's best for you, right? And that just adds just enough so that someone's like, okay, I hear you. I know that it can help, but there's more to it. So our messaging even started to become more ingrained in, just like you said, human connection, and making sure that we're not just talking technicality, but we're actually thinking about the person.
That's great. I want to have all three of you here and follow up on a couple of these themes. First, Kamila, I'm really curious to you, as you heard Martin talking about this and the experiences they're having, and especially that last comment, respond to what you just heard from Martin and what he's seeing and the way AARP is trying to deliver.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny, I've had the pleasure of working with Sharon at ARP and helping produce some of those articles talking about debt and savings, and enjoy working with them. But one of the things that Martin just brought up is that people don't talk about shame, right? There's a lot of people are ashamed of their financial position. And they're not going to open up and mention it in a 500-person, 1,000-person webinar, right? We can share statistics, we can share facts. I can say that Dave Ramsey put $200 away every week in the S&P and do this. But if someone has a history of making bad financial decisions and they feel they're behind, like I'm 40 and I don't have $100,000 in my retirement account, or I'm retiring with credit card debt, right? And we know that's not ideal. We will never uncover that unless there's a human connection, unless someone's going to pause and say, you know, what are your concerns about retirement, right? What do you think is going to impede you from, you know, not being able to wait until you're 70 to take Social Security? We need to have that human connection. And also, I'll share this with you too, is, you know, one thing that I try to do is, you know, people think we as financial advisors are perfect. Notice I'm not. Kevin Keller, who knows me very well, knows I'm not perfect at all. But one of the things I think is helpful is, even as advisors, is to share our money mistakes, right? That if, you know, we all know this, right? If you have a friend or colleague and everything is perfect, 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 will you ever confide in them? Will you ever tell them your mistake? Because this person is the image of perfection. So with my clients, you know, that human connection, I trade, right? You did this. Well, let me tell you what I did when I was 18 and that Discover card that I got, right? Like, you have to be able to ensure that your clients and individuals can think that you can empathize with them and understand their position, provide that human connection to allow them to move past the shame and move to actionable items with their financial plan.
So Kevin, it seems like if we go with the CFP designation, for example, that's about being more than just an advisor and a planner, more of a partner.
It really is being a partner. You know, Maury, one of the things, as I'm sitting here thinking about the evolution of the financial planning profession, many people think, you know, there's not a, you know, I don't have enough money to be a, you know, to see a financial planner. And one of the major evolutionary changes, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, is that there is human delivered advice available in a variety of different ways that in the past just wasn't the case. It used to be only the top rungs of the economic ladder could access financial advice. Kamila and I, she worked a number of years at Vanguard, and there's an example of a large firm. There are many others that are making a CFP professional available to people with you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to access advice. I may be a bit biased here, Maury, but I think the best advice, while it may be digitally enabled, technology playing a big role in the background, but it's that human interaction that's so important.
Well, I want to play on that one because that's exactly where I was wanting to go next on this, Kevin, because I'm hearing so much of this that we could be in a marriage counseling or a life relationship, or, you know, we could be talking to ARP about the way to deliver their program. But I love the intensity with which the human connection on financial planning, and this idea of shame too, that's like, you know, just making it so real. So you take that trend and you take those that are getting, what I'm hearing is those that can apply that are a lot more effective at being able to help people realize their potential and their dreams. And at the same time, we know that technology is advancing. We know that, you know, COVID accelerated probably by a decade or two the use of technology in so many facets of our life. And while we won't take the time to get into the details of the nitty-gritty of AI and all the other stuff with that, these two parallel things, DIY, robo-advisors, retail investors, I can do this myself, Robinhood and all the other stuff and the Bitcoin, all the things, I can do this myself. And yet we're talking about this human thing that needs to be at the center of that. Talk to me about the tension or the potential synergy of those two trends. Who wants to jump on that first?
Kamila, why don't I'll let you go first.
So I think it definitely is a synergy, because I think one thing that we don't realize with this technology is people are seeking information online all the time, and they have difficulties in finding reliable information, right? Unfortunately, now we have these disclosures constantly on, was it X now, that show like, that's not true, or we're not going to get the link, but people are consuming information at a rapid pace. And so that's where, it is helpful, like the chat GPT and creating articles. That's one thing we as a firm are always thinking about, is how do we push information out to individuals very quickly before they can be misinformed, right? The longer you wait, the longer you're kind of having to, spin it and say, well, what you read there is not true, but this is the true statement. We're trying to push the true statement out first before there is that noise from other sources. And then we follow up with the conversation. So here are the facts. Here's a high level of the rule, the implications, who's impacted by this, whether you are or others may be, but then come back and say, well, let's have a conversation about it, and let's create a plan of how this can impact you. So I think I don't think it's an antagonistic relationship. I think if it's done right, it's a partnership to be able to help clients and help those plan more quickly with new information and new technology.
Kevin, do you have a take on that? And Martin, I'd
Well,
really interested from A.
Yeah, just to follow on. Look, I think it's also a function of to think about the importance of human delivered advice. We had a long run of the market generally going up year over year. And do-it-yourselfers thought they were brilliant, right? They'd hop in the market's going up, they don't need advice. And then, the last year and a half or so it's been a very volatile market. Well, look, AI is not going to tell you to hold tight if you want to go and liquidate your entire portfolio and go straight to cash. So that, when we talk about the limits of how technology can be really helpful, it can make advisors more efficient. It can provide access and support to folks that maybe don't have as complex of a financial life. But, when the market's getting really rocky, the robo-advisor or the artificial intelligence is not going to be there to help keep you from making a major mistake.
And I'll just add what Kevin just said is spot on. That's one of the things we saw. We saw a huge uptick in those conversations during the pandemic, right? It was the fear, it was the confusion, it was just trying to truly understand like what's happening in the market, what should I be doing, who should I talk to? And that's where for AARP it became just a great time to just start to say like, hey, this is the time to talk to an advisor. This is the time to have that conversation, because even in a webinar where I'm doing live Q&A, I can't glean enough information from any one person to give you an idea of what to do, or if you should hold, if you should sell. That's those conversations are very much personal conversations, and most, we're always saying personal finance is personal. It's very personal for all of us. So you have to have the conversation with someone who can really get your story and figure out, what kind of safety net do you have? How much time do you have? What do your reserves look like? And things like that. But that's what we saw more than anything. Once the market's volatility started happening, right? That bull market started getting shaky. And then all of a sudden, the conversations were completely different. People that were nearing retirement were calling and just out of pure fear, just to say like, hey, what do I do? What should I do next? We don't know what's happening. going? I'm getting close to retirement. How do I handle this? So we were able to just, start to have more conversations about talking to an advisor, meet with the CFP, meet with someone who can really go through your information. So, with not all the information out there, like Kamila said, it kind of works together. It's a lot of information. A lot of times they're going to bring you that information. You always get the, hey, I just read about this, right? So that's a good way to introduce a conversation or to have to start a conversation. It kind of works that way. And in some cases it's, this was right or this was wrong. But in other ways, we're able to kind of have someone bring concepts to us, have a consumer bring us a concept or bring a new tool to us and say, hey, should I be using this or should I consider this? But so that's where the information overload kind of help can come to a person, because they're always going to ask, what do you think about this? Or is this helpful?
That's great. And I want to encourage our audience, feel free to start putting in questions. There's already been some good suggestions in the thread around some different books and content. That's great. I want to ask, I want to build on this for one more time before we start to talk about the workforce and some of the dynamics of that. But Kamila, I want to ask you, in running your own firm and then having you and others that work with you with your own clients, what are some, because we have a lot of people that are on this session or watch it later who are practitioners themselves, or they're at large firms where they're trying to figure this out. From your perspective, what are kind of the guiding principles that are shaping the way you, for your firm, look at the use of technology coupled with this human connection training? How are you approaching it right now?
That's a very good question. I think even as financial advisors, there's so much technology out there that we're always weeding through, different email systems, different direct communication strategies. There's just a lot of technology out there to support our clients. And one of the things that we do is we have a standard practice of what does the client experience look like? Right? You always want to take a step back and say, when they email, when you're emailing clients, when they're getting a newsletter, when they're logging in and seeing their updated financial plan, is the technology cohesive? Does it run together? Does it conflict? Is it burdensome? In the sense of the fact that, what feedback are we getting about our financial planning software? What feedback are we getting regarding our tax planning software? Because one of the things that we realize is we always want to keep up with technology, but sometimes the underlying client can't keep up themselves. And we make an assumption that every technology is a benefit, but that's not always the case. Sometimes technology can make things confusing at times or a little bit too convoluted. So I would say for those of you that are, running your own firms, use a lot of technology, always take a step back and, understand what is the client experience. Kevin made a comment earlier. I spent most of my professional career at Vanguard. And one of the things that I loved about Vanguard is we had something called Swiss Army. I think they still have it now. So you talk to any company that, that's talking to clients about their finances, the busiest time of the year is tax season. Regardless of your level in the organization, you had to put hours and talk to clients on the phone. So I would sit in Swiss Army, and then Bill McNabb, who was the former CEO, would be sitting next to me, right? Our chief investment officer would be sitting next to me. And the reason why I'm saying this is regardless of your level within your organization, it was a way to close that distance, because they were seeing, one, what do your frontline employees experience in navigating technology to help our clients? We got a lot of upgrades requests done around tax season for that very reason. And they will also be able to hear what are clients calling and complaining about, right? Like, I can't find my tax form. They would now hear that, right, from talking to participants and clients at Vanguard. So I think that's one thing, that technology is a great, technology does help us scale and help more clients and make us efficient. But I think it's also important to take a step back at times and say, is technology at times being prohibitive or not used in the right way? And are we really advancing that connection with our clients?
Yeah, so much of that conversation that could extend about AI, for example, that could extend far beyond this topic, is so much of the fear is replacing my job and all this sort of stuff, when in reality, what we're seeing the more we work on this is it's actually more about understanding how it can help you be a better version of you.
Correct.
And you still have to be the one that shows up. And that's why I want to pivot to talking about the workforce, because if you're going to have the kind of relationships that you're talking about, there's got to be people. There's got to be people that are working and delivering on this and have these skills in place. And I know, Kevin, that CFP's board ambition is, I think it's 150,000 by CFP professionals by 2030. Talk to me about that workforce reality of what training approach you show the most promise given the hiring needs and the demand for that many, and we don't have that many right now. How do we get there? What are you doing in that front to try to help with that?
Yeah, Maury, the demographics are not our friend. We have more CFP professionals over the age of 70 than we do under the age of 30. Think about that. More CFPs over 70 than under 30. And so that, is a huge demographic problem. And it's a problem that when I sit in corner offices, whether it's a firm with 12,000 advisors or 2 advisors, the people who run the firms and make hiring decisions are really struggling. Fortunately, people see CFP certification, especially if they're entering the profession, almost a requirement. It's obviously voluntary, but it's a requirement. And what we're doing to help solve that effort is one of our strategic priorities is workforce development. And simply stated, we're trying to recreate maybe a STEM-like initiative to promote financial planning as an attractive career choice, both to college-bound high school students, which candidly probably are not going to be certified by 2030 or 2031, but also to career changers. And what we know is that many people come to financial planning as a career changer. And, for our folks listening here, it's a good career option. It really is. And we find particularly that people who come from careers of service are well suited. It offers the opportunity to help people, and at the same time, it offers flexibility and the opportunity to give back and good compensation as well. So we have a future financial planner initiative, and again, working hard to make sure that there are plenty of competent and ethical financial planners available to provide the kind of advice we've been talking about today.
Kamila, I want to come to you on this. I'm going to just cut right to the chase on this. Is that in society, we have some broader issues as it relates to seeing, interacting with people who are like me, who are not like me. In some ways, we're making a lot of advancement on that, on differences in race, identity, gender, a number of those different things. From your perspective, how can companies balance their efforts to kind of boost diversity while understanding the historical population of financial advisors, which have traditionally been largely male and white?
I think one of the biggest things is that there's not much, we're creating more awareness of the profession, but there isn't a lot of awareness of the profession, right? I always joke with people, like, if you want to be a real estate agent, just put on Netflix and you're watching Selling Sunset and you hear about $1 Million Mansion, right? If you want to be a boat captain, you can watch Below Deck. But the only TV show we have for financial advisors is Ozark, which doesn't make it look too appealing at all, right? Who wants to hide from a Mexican cartel, right? But I think that people don't understand how, to Kevin's point, what a wonderful profession is. I mean, this is, and how do we reshape what we do every day? People make an assumption that I sit with, 5 screens in trade portfolios all day and look at charts. That is not what I do. What I do is I help people. I help people retire. I help people send their kids to college. I help people get out of debt. I help people buy their first home. And if people knew the human-centric aspects of being a financial planner or being a CFP professional, I think there would be much more interest in this role or in this profession. The joy that you get, to Kevin's point of, people join this profession to help people. And that's what you hear for a lot of other professions as well. But I don't think it's as clearly articulated in the public of all the good that we do and how we really help people. And, this knowledge, I'll say selfishly, helps you as well, right? All this information that I hope to retire early, right? And I hope to wait, to Martin's point, because now I understand financial planning and how to achieve those goals. So I think that is a big issue. And the second is, I know there's a lot of programs right now, Lori, but I think a lot of it is, how do we increase the level of mentorship and, helping people cross the line, right? This is a very serious role. There's an education requirement, there's certification, there's hours that you have to put in, but having a mentor kind of keep you on that path, be a cheerleader, be a coach, and then to your point, like championing this profession, I think that's something that, if you are at a large firm, what mentorship program do you have to reach those populations that may not know this profession exists, and to recruit more diverse individuals?
Right. Martin, when you talk with the people that you're having your sessions and your programs with, to what extent does the workforce issue become a topic? Like, either because I want to find people that I can relate with, or that are like me or not like me, or just even having the competency of the individuals that they want on the workforce? What does that come up, and in what ways?
Well, so I'd say the one thing that to mention, and I was going to just piggyback right off of what Kamila just mentioned, is in talking about CFPs and finding advisors, right? AARP, we created a tool called Interview an Advisor. And the basis of the tool is to help to protect and educate individuals around how to find an advisor of value. An advisor that's going to really work in their best interest. And it's loosely based on the CFP principles. But what we find is that when we're having conversations and we're telling someone, hey, we want you to find an advisor, one of the first concerns is, can I afford it? Right. So it's really encouraging. I would go to the CFP diversity summits, and you start to meet CFPs who are, using new models for payment. Right. You're seeing subscription models. You're seeing these other ways of receiving payment or sliding scale models that are coming about. And a lot of that's coming because they're seeing that, hey, we want to work with, we're not just looking to work with someone who has 250,000 liquid assets, right, to invest or investable assets. So we're seeing, and we look to promote these things. So I'd even say one of the things that I'm driving for is that even in our next iteration of Interview an Advisor, it's having those conversations about, look, these are the types of people that you can find. This is the type of professional you can find. These are the types of offerings that are there, right? Everyone's not asking you to come to pay this high percentage or to have this certain amount of investable income, but the diversity within the field is there, and that diversity showing up through these new models of taking payment or the types of clients that they're taking. So it has been exciting to see that and encouraging to see that, and we want to promote that more so that individuals are aware of what's available for them.
That's great. Thanks for that. And want to point out, because I know him as a friend of mine, but Brian Jepson just mentioned in the chat, he's a late stage, coming from ER doctor, moving into financial planning. Talk about helping people, Brian, and then helping people in a different place. Exactly what Kevin and Kamila, you were talking about. Now we've got a few minutes here at the end, and I want to close on, try to see if we get to some practical stuff, and then I'm going to come back to you, Mike, here at the very end. But we've got people listening to this from all different walks of, practitioners, but then companies and those that are involved in communications and marketing. And I want to ask, from your perspective, those that are listening in today that are wanting to be able to, I want to ask this on two sides. First, I want to start on the workforce, since we've been saying this, is that in terms of attracting and recruiting individuals and a workforce that's going to be in line with this? We've already talked about ways of mentorship and other program, but quick lightning round, any other recommendations you would give to those listening about the way they need to, what should they be doing to be able to attract and retain the right type of players in this space? Let me just go, Kevin, and then I'll go over to you, Kamila. And Martin, I know this isn't your space, but I'd love your take too. Just a quick on that. Quick lightning round on that. Recruiting and retaining a workforce.
You know, look, we have such a high retention rate that once we recruit CFP professionals, 97+% of them renew year after year, and that includes people leaving the profession. So if it's a profession, if it sounds like it's something you might be interested, come see us at cfp.net for more information about the career.
Kamila, what recommendation would you give to companies, financial planning firms, anyone who might be listening to this, about what they need to do to up their game with their own people and attracting the right people?
Sure. I think it's how do you articulate the role in the profession, right? I remember I was, reading that, like, for job descriptions, just to kind of talk about gender differences, like a woman will only apply for a job if they meet like 90% of the characteristics for a man. I'm not picking y'all. It's like 40 to 50%, right? Think about that and how you articulate what you need to have to be a successful financial planner, right? There are a lot of transferable skills. We heard too just now, right? With being an ER doctor to being a financial could not be more different, but there are a lot of transferable skills that are there and the desire to help people. So if you're a firm that's having a challenge in recruiting individuals in financial planning, think about the core competencies and skills that transfer from other professions that move into financial planning that can provide a lot of attraction to your firm.
Okay. I'm going to shift to the last one I want to ask you, and I'll start with you, Martin. Same question, but now these same organizations, smaller, larger, that are trying to connect with the general public and trying to communicate that our approach is a human-centric one. Let me go, Martin, Kevin, and then Kamila. What advice would you have to organizations in the way they communicate, the way they market to the general consumer about a more human-centric approach to differentiate themselves and say, hey, look, this is why what we're doing is effective? Any thoughts?
I just say continue to promote or continue to focus on the other sides of the person. There are so many ways to kind of focus on money and kind of have conversations about money and improvement without even using the word money. You don't even have to necessarily talk about money. Make it about the person, make it about fulfillment, freedom, independence, all the other great aspects of it, so that people can really connect to it in those terms first.
Perfect. Kevin, thank you.
I wouldn't presume to tell firms how to think about this. Firms have figured that they know this. They're working on this, and candidly, many of them are including CFP certification in their new advisor training program. So look, this is something that firms have finally figured out, and they've figured out that the public wants holistic financial advice, not just information on investment management.
Great. And Kamila, but before we do that, on the chat there, Kevin, there's a couple of questions. One in particular just came in from Janice. Maybe you could answer on the chat about the continuing education. But go ahead, Kamila.
Sure. I'll echo what Martin said earlier. Personal finance is personal. So I think how you communicate these topics and considerations, it needs to be personal in nature. And then one of the things is that, as we talk about AI and technology, it can share a lot of information, but it often doesn't include, what to do next, right? So I have this information, this is the law, this is changing, I have this. How do we help individuals really process what their next step should be after reading an article, right? It could be, questionnaires that see if it impacts you. It could be, resources to find a competent, ethical financial planner. It could be nonprofit organizations that can provide more one-on-one support. So how do we make it more action-oriented? Because I think that's one of the issues is there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of ways to, confuse yourself, but there's very few places where you can find actionable items as to how to improve your financial position. And if I were in communications or focused on that's something that I would really think about in every piece, in every article I write, or even with the technology that I utilize, is there an actionable orientation to it?
Love that. Well, thank you so much. Mike is our co-CEO, but also this area you specialize, do a lot in our organization. Can you give us a summation of the things you thought stood out most today from this important topic of really transforming trust and putting the human at the center?
Well, first off, thank you to everybody that's here. Kevin, Kamila, Martin, you all are clients of ours. You've been clients of ours for a very long time, and there's much appreciation and gratitude. There is data that we have collected from both AARP and CFP board without diverging anything that is a truth. And this truth is this, that having a financial plan, working with a certified financial planner, removes negative emotions and replaces those negative emotions with positive emotions that then tap into these values of security and confidence for both themselves and for others in their family. So think about that with what we were just saying about how this is a helping profession. It's a helping profession for the individuals that are practicing. It is a helping profession as a profession, but it is also a helping profession in the sense of taking something that someone is feeling as a negativity and replacing it with something that is such a positivity. And to me, that speaks to what these brands are as well. All three of you here are brands. You represent organizations that are brands. And your brands play roles in people's lives. And you are a partner in people's lives of partnering with them and breaking down barriers. Because let's face it, we do know that there's a lot of inertia that we as humans have. You spoke about shame. And you don't want to admit certain things, and that's inertia. Or I just don't want to deal with my will right now because I don't want to think about dying or those types of inertia. But having a financial plan overcomes a lot of that inertia. I just think it's such a powerful thing of having this human connection that's there. I definitely am of the belief that as AI continues to evolve, yes, it'll help us as individuals, as humans in profession, and be a tool to be used, but it is going to reveal the need for even greater relationship of human and connections that are there. So thank you all for joining us. This was a learning session, very insightful, but then also transmitting such criticality of the need for doing planning and having that kind of security and confidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Kamila. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all of those of you who have joined us today and watch this later. Just as a little FYI and teaser, we have on September 7th, we're actually going to come a little bit sooner than normal. And we have a fantastic session. Our next one is Breaking Barriers, the roadmap to unity in our communities. And we're going to be actually revealing a documentary that we've been a part of on how to actually engage in a divisive society in a way that's actually productive. And so join us on September 7th, and everybody take care so much. Thank you so much for all the time.